This conference will now be recorded.
I was here at 6 or 5 or 4, but I'm gonna be there at 7.
Get started now.
I just start a little early because sometimes that thing takes a minute to. The nice lady on the other side push that button.
Okay, 4:30. So we'll get this public safety meeting call to order. Would you please call the roll?
Councilor Halverson,
Here.
Councilor Sanchez, Councilor Foster,
Here.
Councilor Best,
Here.
quorum.
Okay, thank you. So I entertain a motion to approve the agenda in the minutes.
Approval of March 14th, 2023 Public Safety Agenda and the minutes from Public Safety Committee meeting on February 14th, 2023.
Second.
Any discussion? From anybody? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to regular item number 1, consider resolution condemnation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, committee member, staff, I have 6 properties on here. The first one being 2406 North Cole, it's a mobile home. Sent out notices, no replies yet. The second one, 309 East Deming. We have made contact last week with the homeowners for the property owner's son, I should say. The man has passed. So his son is trying to take care of it. Right now, it's open to the public. We've seen people in and out of there. Advised him of securing the property. He said he was gonna do it last week. I passed by today and it's still the same. 113 South Elm and 113 and a half. Those 2 properties, I have talked to the property owner. He advised me that he bought the properties from a gentleman. He's since forfeited on them, and he doesn't know if they're still in his name or not. And he's tried to look for the guy that he sold them to, but he doesn't know if he's passed on or not. And we just need to run them through resolution because they're open to the public. We've had a lot of complaints about them, so we could secure them the right way. 212 West Albuquerque. This one, we had a contractor come in and pull a permit on it, so I'm thinking we should take this one off. He has been working on it, so I don't see any sense in sending this one forward since he's already going through the process of at least trying to fix it up. 508 South Delaware, the last one. It's previous owner pulled a demo on it, pulled a demo permit on it. Started on it, but has since sold it over to these people. This is just putting a condemnation under the new owners so they can see what they're gonna do, and they still haven't came in. The property itself right now is a mess, so we sent them a letter for that. That's all I got.
Anybody want to make a motion?
All right, well, do we want to?
You gonna remove 212?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
so I make a motion that we send to full council on the consent agenda 2406 North Cole Avenue, 309 East Deming Street, 111 South Elm Avenue, 113 South Elm Avenue and a half, and 508 South Delaware Avenue for condemnation.
Second.
Any discussion? Anybody in the audience? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. On the regular item number 4, consider recommending to authorize consider adopting ordinance 23XX, amending chapter 4 of the Bible Code regarding animal welfare. Just so you know, I did talk to the judge and I made some changes based on some of y'all's recommendations. Yes.
Madam Chair, thank you. So if you'll look at the adjustments, a few adjustments were made. First, we've included a secondary definition of dangerous dog. So the way this ordinance now works is there'll be a dangerous dog and a vicious dog. Dangerous dogs have a number of requirements attached to them if somebody wishes to keep them within the city limits. A vicious dog is categorically not allowed in the city. A dangerous dog is a dog that would cause injury to a person or animal off the property when unprovoked. That's kind of the core. That's page 1 of 7 under dangerous dog subsection 1. Also, a dangerous animal, which would fall under the dangerous dog provision. It's a interesting statutory thing that a number of other cities do this way, is anything that's poisonous with a sting or a bite. So if you keep a pet cobra, for instance, that's going to by default be a dangerous animal. If you know somebody with a pet cobra, that's awesome.
I thought by Mexico state statute,
You can't have most of them.
poisonous, venomous.
Yeah, you're not supposed to have them by statute. Well, it's any animal that could be cat, say, it's a very broad coverage just in case there's one that state statute doesn't cover.
Right.
And now a vicious dog would be somebody being a dog that has killed or inflicted serious bodily injury to a person. This would be multiple bites, disfigurement, impairment, or death. Really, the core of it is if you've done something worse as a dog than what would make you dangerous, you're going to fall under that vicious category. The next portion here is nuisances. We discussed that briefly. We're amending the nuisance provision. Just this will in effect allow neighbors to say under the city's code, this is deemed a nuisance, and they can have a private right of action. And that way we don't necessarily have to get involved with code enforcement, but we could as well. The penalties were, after discussion, are no longer mandatory, but have been increased for the minimums. Importantly, in my view, cruelty to animals is now maxed out. So it's no less than the full fine, up to 90 days in jail, and a prohibition of owning an animal in the future for no less than 5 years. Similarly, for abandonment, if it occurs more than twice, there'll be a prohibition on owning an animal. These pets and cats deserve good homes.
Microchipping.
Oh, yes, microchipping. We've just tidied up the definition of microchipping. The definition now requires that the microchipping be with a third-party organization that animal welfare approves of, or if in the future animal welfare decides to just have its own program with chipping, whatever animal welfare uses. If the chip is not scannable by the equipment animal welfare has, it would not be considered a valid microchip. If we go now to page 4 of 7, this just clarifies some of the, at the bottom, some of the requirements that a person with a, yes, Counselor?
I have a question back on page 3 of 7.
Mhm.
You have it marked 12, keep more than 8, 5. Is the 5 supposed to be blue?
It's crossed out.
The 5 is crossed out.
Okay, so it should be blue. And I have a problem with that. We need to keep 5 because people that have 5 dogs probably have 6, 7, 8. And county is 9. So you're topping out at counties. And we did that years ago. Well, when we did it earlier, we did it pretty much on space of
But it's with a permit.
without a permit.
Yeah, yeah. So I see what you're saying, but yeah, I just, some people have cats and dogs. And I think as long as they're microchipped and well cared for and have their vaccinations, I don't,
I go back to that though. We did have the specifics of the size. Is that no longer in here?
I don't,
Size of yards and stuff.
So that was taken out of the last bill.
yeah.
Yeah, so that's no longer part of the
I've
code.
never seen anything on
It was what?
It was in the previous code, but when this current version was adopted, it was taken out.
When was this current version adopted?
Exactly.
when you guys did it.
No, we left it in there.
When we did it, that code, I mean, we're the ones
I've never seen anything in this on that.
that had specific size. It was down to the point where that way they could know if they had the right size yard.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, but
8 Chihuahuas is different than 8.
because I haven't
Mastiffs.
seen,
Yeah,
I haven't seen any.
great names.
Yeah. It was at weight of dog, square footage of yard, all that had.
Abby, do you remember us?
I was sitting here trying to remember. I don't remember.
Because we had quite a discussion with Sammy on that one. That was right after,
Keyboard?
right after that kid was attacked.
Because I've never seen.
That was one of the things when we did it that last time, we spent,
2 work sessions on that one, I think.
but we spent like 2 years going over the whole thing. It was a long,
For those of you watching online, we're just pulling up unicode.com for Roswell's animal welfare code. You can follow. The counselor, it was not codified. Let me go ahead and pull up the ordinance. Facility bill. Probably not cars, exotic, no. Pet animals at large, nuisance. Livestock, no. Yeah, so we have it for livestock, but not for dogs or cats. So it's the poultry requirement. Chickens. Vietnamese pigs. Okay, cats and dogs. Put that in there. It's awesome. Okay. I think council, it only applies to the chickens.
Right there.
right there,
Oh, there we go.
additional care.
We had 422.
We had every side. I mean, that was one of the things.
I
We
remember.
broke it down to,
Oh, makes
Yes.
sense.
if someone has,
100.
someone has an apartment with a little
area
kid like
shall
this, they can't
be
have 5 dogs.
provided for each dog weighing less than 30.
Yeah.
So there's your, so I wasn't
Yeah.
smoking that day, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, it broke it down specifically so that,
What was it taken out of?
because if somebody had a
No, it's
acre yard,
It's still
Okay,
gonna
so
be-
sorry, I guess I misunderstood you, Counselor. Yeah, the idea is that if you can't have more, than 8 is the limit with a permit, but you still have to have sufficient area. It doesn't change any of the area requirements that are already attached.
okay, we didn't have 420.
Yeah, so if somebody else.
Yeah, I don't see 422 on here.
I think it's only the pages that he's changing.
Yeah, these only have amendments.
I still think 5 would be adequate. Up to you, Barry.
My other problem I still have is, well, they're not mandatory
Yeah, we took off, and that way the judge can have a discretion.
discretion, because the other thing that we look at is why do we have it? We want to, and if,
Well, my whole goal with making the fines high is they realize, because how much is it to microchip a dog now? 30, 40 bucks?
$1.90, I can do it.
It's got one done for 65.
So if they realize it's cheaper to microchip than to get fined for not microchipping, the whole goal is to get them to microchip.
So when you went to the judge, did you ask him how many of these people are actually paying their fines and keeping up with it? Or are we still at a loss on that?
We're still at a loss because he's using his discretion. But I did talk to him about that. 'Cause that's why I told him I was going
To
mandatory.
me, okay, I need to
Well-
microchip my dog, but then you're going to raise the fines. And I don't sit and read the manual or the ordinance every day. So I would know, these folks back behind me would know because they read it.
Yeah.
Everyday Joe Blow doesn't read it, so they don't know.
That's where I want the city to come out with some kind of a marketing campaign when, if this passes, letting people know it's cheaper to get your dogs vaccinated, it's cheaper to get your dogs microchipped.
Well, the whole thing about it is when we did it the first time, we threw away the license. You don't have to pay for a license if you get microchip.
Yeah.
That's the selling
But
factor
that's
there.
microchipping them and they're not registering the microchips. So now when they get picked up, still nobody knows who they belong to.
Well, and that's the other thing is all they have to do is call animal services and say, this is our number.
See, and I thought when we did that we said they had to be microchipped by Roswell. Roswell had its own microchipping, and then of course the vets have their own.
But the thing about it is any microchip works. All you gotta do is scan it, turn the number into our guys and say, this dog belongs to me. Give
So
them
when the chip is put in,
address.
it should be
I mean,
returned.
it's just, it's just like a 20-digit number.
Yeah.
And
Some of the vets will register it for you. I think Smith doesn't, is that right?
well, if they're registering with us, with the animal control or with the national
So
service.
national, whoever's
The national
microchipping.
service still, I mean, that's, I think.
They're making you pay. Roswell's
You might-
making you pay.
Yeah,
Put it
I'm
in.
not an expert. This is just my effort to try to fix the problem. We have, you guys are fully aware, we have a major problem in this.
But like I'm saying, I'm not saying that this is, I mean, they increased the fines on DWI to the point where now we have less prosecution of or less actual successful prosecution of DWI. We haven't got rid of the DWI problem by raising all the penalties and everything. It doesn't, I mean, so I understand you're wanting to do something, but it's counterintuitive to me to start charging $100 more and then people won't come pick up their dog.
And
They're not doing that already though, picking up their dogs. Still.
you're kind of defeating your purpose when you say keep more than 8 animals without a permit. So now you're allowing to keep 8 animals without a permit.
But
Before it
But
was
they
5.
have to have a microchip, they have to have them vaccinated, and they have to be well fed and cared for.
So who's going to go door to door?
That's the same. I mean,
If the neighbors call the police and the animal control officer shows up and sees there's a problem, they're not being taken care of, or they're not microchipped, or they're not vaccinated, then he takes them. But the whole goal, we don't want to fill animal control. I want people to take care of their pets. And I'm hoping the fines will be extensive enough, they'll realize, hey, we better do this or we're going to get fined.
Do we have enough officers to run parts of town like the trash trucks do and go up and down and look to see?
Calls and what the severity is.
Well, and
And I'm not asking them to do that.
the next statement though is you're saying they're not doing it now, so we're going to raise the price. They're not going to do it then either. So it doesn't.
Some of them will, some of them will, I don't know.
Then they should have done it before.
Yeah, that's the whole idea.
But what I'm saying is there's probably some doing it now. You raise the rate, they may not do it. So now you're cutting down on it. We have a problem, but I think it's one of those problems that we've
Now,
got.
I agree with your educating. I think you should do your educating campaign first for 6 months to a year. See how that works at the lower prices. Then if it doesn't work, maybe go up. At least they've had a chance to be educated. Nobody has educated anybody in Roswell, whether it's in the water bill, whether it's on the billboard.
See, we gotta figure out how to educate, because how are we gonna reach these people? Because we've been doing the trash cleanups in Chihuahua. Probably 30-40% of the homes have too many dogs, too many puppies, they're not fixed, they're running around at large, you know.
So where are they going to come up with the,
I don't know, maybe they just get their dog fixed. Again, I don't have all the answers. This is just my attempt to try to fix.
And I didn't speak up on the vicious dog one. My problem I have with it is we don't say anything of justified biting, justified and
Like if someone's on somebody's
Yeah,
property.
if a burglar is breaking into my house and my dog kills that dog, the burglar,
I
my
think
dog isn't going.
we haven't gotten that far
Yeah,
yet.
Counselor, if you look at subsection 3 on page 6, there's the justification, page subsection D on 5. It's at the bottom of page 5. These are all the justifications that were already in place from the 2020 ordinance. Nothing's changed.
Well, but a vicious dog means a canine or you're labeling a vicious dog, someone that, a dog that has killed a person, inflicted serious injury to a person. Unjustifiable injury possible, but in this definition, it doesn't say justifiable.
That is correct. If I had drafted this in 2020, I would have had the definition of just a vicious dog in subpart D on page 5 in the definition section. But typically when I try to amend ordinances, I want as few changes as possible.
Look at page 6 of 7. The dog was responding to pain or injury, protecting itself or its offspring, or pretending or defending a human being or domestic animal.
Well, I just want it very clear that
If someone breaks in your house and the dog bites them, it's justified.
So here's another quick question for you. Since you're down around cleaning up in Chihuahua and all that, and you've seen all these animals down there and you have some of the police officers down there and all of that, those houses probably have more than 5 or 8 critters at them. If you count all the cats and all the dogs and the puppies and whatever, are you going to go door to door finding them?
No, I think we'd wait, like he said, until they get a call. And on this stuff, the animal control officer also has some discretionary. I mean, if he goes somewhere and he finds someone with a lot of animals and they're not well taken care of, he can pick them up. But if he doesn't find one and maybe it's not microchipped, he could probably say, hey, you know, he doesn't have to give them a ticket. He can say, go get it microchipped or you're going to get fined. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. There's nothing in there that says he
Oh, yeah.
has to give them a ticket.
Discretion is all, I mean, when it comes to court too, if the person comes in and says, you know what, I'm sorry, I was in a bad mood. I told you to whatever. But I actually did get my dog microchip. The case is just going to get dismissed 9 times out of 10 if I had to guess.
So on page 5 of 7, you have what the owner will do if it has a vicious or
If it's dangerous.
dangerous. Who's going to follow up on that? I mean, we've already got our folks working, and I don't know if we're completely full with all of our officers and all of that. The officers that go out in the trucks? Okay.
I don't know that we can follow up on it, but if something happens and they've been picked up and gone to court and they have not followed up, but also too, the judge did say his staff is there to call and follow up on these calls. If they think it's a dangerous dog, he said his staff will take care of the follow-up. That's what he's told me. Do you have anything?
So like, for instance, on the cruelty section, we've taken out the mandatory, but I like mandatory, especially for cruelty, because from what I understood, one of the reasons we were doing this was that the judge keeps letting everybody off with. So if we're leaving everything up to him again, I think we'll just be, I'll be hearing that.
And I can answer that for you. When it says $500 is the maximum jurisdiction the city has to fine. So by saying no less than 500, that is in effect the maximum fine period. He doesn't have to. Now, the 90 days in jail is discretionary. That's language that the counselors can amend, of course. Mandatory jail time in the model penal code is typically frowned upon for real serious stuff. And in my view, like as the city attorney, if I see an animal cruelty case where I want to put somebody away, I'm taking it to magistrate court and having the DA pick it up.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. That's where the person's probably gonna want a jury trial anyway, if they're trying to defend themselves. They're not gonna work.
Right, yeah, no, we definitely would prefer to go the felony route for the more serious animal cruelty stuff.
Are you done, Abby?
The only other thing I was thinking is like the running at large, like the first offense. I mean, we have people all the time that say they can't even pay $50. And I think there is something to that people will leave their dog down there. A second offense, I think, yeah, give it to them because then you obviously have a habitual offender. But first offenses, I think some of these are kind of high.
And I can speak to that, as can Mr. Burris. So this is the first conviction. So for us to actually take somebody to court for an animal running at large takes a lot. How many times? I'm just thinking of my neighbor's dog. He's been out like 20 times and the catchers are always like, oh, hey, it's Buddy. But they bring him right back home. So he's such a good boy. But it's that sort of really abusive, the person who clearly has a broken fence and is taking care of the dog. It's a stick for the most severe of cases.
Because I talked to Jim about that. And, the goal isn't to fill up animal control because the goal is, like, you want to tell them to microchip me.
Let's go ahead, readers in the truck, if I tell them, you don't want to take it to the facility, scan it, take it back home. And why did the dog get out? Maybe someone left the gate open and, it's the first time it's happened. We just want the problem solved. Necessarily don't want to prosecute everybody in town. And we want it to cease. So typically we just try to help the person, the person who owns the animal.
So that's where your officers first come in and they don't charge the $50 or the 100. They take it back. They give them a warning. Do they write warnings?
Yeah. Or door hangers, warning, Joey. We don't prosecute everybody.
So they've had their chance. I get that. I just think we're steep on the fines. I mean, we can't even collect what we have now.
Make a motion then. Listen to all the discussion
Before
stuff.
we do that, I just wanted to look at on 5 of 7. I think there was there. There's at the very top on, 3 marked out. The owner can provide a sufficient secured enclosure that shall be secured or sued for the dangerous dog.
Actually, Counselor, that whole section 3 is supposed to be out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why the 3 is
Okay.
yeah.
I was like, there's several.
433, you need to renumber them.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Yeah, that's a redlining issue, not a.
okay. I was like, there's several grammatical.
Okay, I apologize. I'll call on you, but you need to give your name and your address too. We need your name and address, right?
Yeah.
You speak. Go ahead.
Jackie McFarland, 5001 Meadowlark Lane, 88203. On the vicious dog, maybe I didn't hear it. Is that also if the dog has a history of attacking other dogs or other animals?
No, not necessarily. That'd be a dangerous dog.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, so I mean, if your dog has a proclivity for squirrels.
Public nature.
No, I mean.
I'd like to have you feed your dog, have them over at my house.
Yeah.
Oh, mollies are so good. But yes, no. So vicious dog, if the dog has caused serious harm to a human, we're prohibiting that in city limits if this passes. Dangerous or animals, not necessarily. Those are dangerous. So like, the problem, it becomes a matter of.
Change, make a motion to change this.
The matter because, so if the dog kills a squirrel, it's really dangerous. Right, and it sort of depends on the circumstance. So if it falls under dangerous dog, which typically, and those dogs that are dangerous have to stay on the owner's property unless done for medical treatment. So you don't want to have to euthanize the dog on the scrap. You know what I mean? So we're being a little, We're risking being overly lenient to a dog who's attacked another dog, so as to not have to kill it in this type of language.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to get clarification on that.
But yeah, if a human seriously gets,
Ms. Edwards, do you have any?
Yeah, I do. Anna Edwards, 1207. You had mentioned something about officers picking up dogs if things are not well cared for. Do they not have to go to a judge first and have the judge present their case to them and have the judge give them an order to pick up that dog? Or can they just grab a dog? And I mean, if it's really seriously in danger.
So the Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. This would be considered a seizure of private property. Now, if the dog's unmarked and uncollared, then it would kind of be considered what they call fair snatch or right, so wild animal, and the state can take control automatically. If there is an owner and the owner wants the dog and we do not want to give the dog back, the owner can force us through the municipal court to give the dog back.
But don't they have to go to a judge? If they see an animal is too skinny, needs whatever.
Yeah, so if the animal is too skinny and on the property, we can't necessarily go on the property, but if the animal is at large, we can go on the property. Now, if the animal is about to die, we would call that an exigent circumstance, and the cop can go in, animal welfare can go in and save the dog's life. So it's, I can't unfortunately give you it's a spectrum of what courts call reasonableness. But it really depends on particular aspects. But the shorter answer is, once we have an animal, regardless of how we got it, if we want to keep it forever and somebody has a property right on the animal, the court would adjudicate that.
Let me ask, does an officer have the right to determine that the dog is vicious and euthanize it immediately?
No. The ordinance provides, so if it's in the field and there's no safe way to apprehend, lethal force is authorized. If we can see the animal, it is supposed to go to a judge for a determination on viciousness before.
Okay. What if an officer forces an owner to bring the dog down to be euthanized because he has determined it's vicious?
I don't, the ordinance does not provide for that authority.
Has that happened?
Yes.
Let's
Yes,
talk.
recently.
Let's talk after.
Okay,
We don't want that.
yeah. And on the microchipping, Juliana, I'm sorry, I'm with Janine on this one wholeheartedly. You add another fine to these people, you know, $75, even $65 to go microchip a dog. That may mean some of their family may not eat that for 2 or 3 days. It's overly burdensome to the underprivileged. There's so much in this town where the underprivileged, the poor, the not well educated, they're just opposed in so many areas. And some of these fines really give them a hard time. And those are the people that we need to create help. You know, maybe somehow, somewhere along the line, we can figure out a way to get a vet to do a microchip clinic for $10 or $15. I mean,
Did you say you get for?
You can buy them for $1.90.
yeah.
Well, and when we first,
I mean, you have to buy 50 of them, but.
Yeah, but who puts the end that the vets are objecting to?
but when we first did this microchipping, we took away the city license, which is the little aluminum
Right.
tag.
Right.
We always
Which we
had,
bought anyway.
correct, and we always had,
When we went to the rabies.
yeah, we always had the rabies clinic. So you
Right.
paid the vet for his rabies clinic at a discount, and you bought a license from the city.
Right.
There is no reason why the vets can't still do the microchipping right there at a less cost. The city buy the microchips. We microchip them right there at the vet clinic at a cost, at a small cost. Then you have more chance of getting more animals because those clinics really work. I
You get
mean,
the number right there.
you get the number right then and there as long as the city staff is doing their job.
Agreed. But the vets won't do it. They don't want to do it.
Which, that's where,
They make a lot of money. They buy a microchip, like you said, for $2, $3, $4, and they charge $65.
yeah, and like I said, so
You know, they don't want us out there, Mike.
So does a microchip have to be put in by a vet?
According to the vets, yes.
Yeah.
But they
I have no
have to be under the supervision of a vet. So if we could get a vet.
Well, if your vet's there dealing with rabies.
They aren't even doing that now.
Well, I understand that, and we could probably get them back into doing that.
That would be great.
But there again, you have a lot of legal because
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I think the fines are unreasonable and to make it. Yeah, to make an uneducated person know that the city scanner will or will not take that microchip.
See, that's what, but I'm at that point where I'm not even sure
well, see,
any of this. Right. Well, I didn't make changes because I'm still at the point where I'm not sure why we need it.
yeah.
I don't see that what we have.
Dog, that was on,
Okay, so page 3 of 7, dangerous dog, 5 underneath 414. Unlawfully keeping a dangerous dog, no less than $300. So you have a definition of a dangerous dog, but then who's going to say it's a dangerous dog? The judge?
Yeah, so
So you're going to take that dog into the judge and turn it loose to the court and say, here you go, see if it's dangerous? Are you going to take him pictures?
that sounds kind of like a great sitcom. So,
Just saying.
well, if you actually read the ordinance, there's two ways a dog can be taken. This one would be by animal welfare. If the dog is wandering and we see it be dangerous. The other option would be that it's reported to us, then we could take the dog to court and make a determination that it's dangerous. Yeah, there's, dogs are things that we all love in here.
Okay, and so we've already had this.
And the other problem I have with 8,
Cats too. Please quit forgetting about the cat.
well,
Well,
I've
they're
been
just
told
naturally
in
mean.
Albuquerque, I've been told by a friend of mine that you put a warning, dangerous dog. That tells us that you know the dog is dangerous, so now you're liable. When kids
yeah,
get
we
by
took
that.
this from farm, I took mine from farm.
This is performing, and I helped right Albuquerque's dangerous dog in 16.
But that's what I was told. You don't put the sign up because
Yeah, you're actually.
you're welcoming liability. So, I mean,
I don't know why.
well,
Oh, I guess if you live down south, you do.
personally, everyone's scared of my 2 females that fight each other. My wife's arm got broken, but they didn't break the arm. She was trying to break them up and stuck her hand in the arm and then fell on the mouth and broke her own arm and got a vicious bite in it too that the dog didn't mean to do, but was forced because her weight was on top of the dog. It looks really bad, but that could have been a vicious dog. I mean, it was more of a felony assault because way more than.
Okay, so I need to know what you guys want to do. Again, like I said, I don't have any crystal ball or anything, and I don't know what we can do. I just know what's been done in the past and the lower fines and everything. It's not.
I would like to see an advertising campaign be citywide through the water department, through the online.
On the billboards.
You know, because we did that at one point, where'd you move? We did that at one point where we did animal control on our Facebook and all of that. And 46% of the population looks at Facebook one way or the other from what our study was back.
Well, I don't want to throw this whole thing away because there's stuff in there that I think we do need. It sounds to me like you guys have a problem. We got rid of mandatory. You guys issues with the fines. What do you recommend?
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
I think if I'm hearing correctly, this committee would like to see any amendments to section 4-14 to be undone. And that's the whole fine section. Because I'm not hearing any particular opposition to the dangerous dog addition code.
And I don't have a problem with the dangerous dog. Did you want to add something more to that or something less to that?
Well, it was the vicious. But,
You want to keep the vicious or no?
but I'm with, why? I don't know why we have it in two different places. That's, or is it
One's a definition, I think one
in
is.
the definition section?
Yeah, that was, I was just following the convention of ordinance from 2020. If you leave instruction with me, I can wrap it into the definition section completely, and it wouldn't actually change the substance of the ordinance. And I could have that for you if you guys.
Well,
council.
Somewhere on the vicious portion, I just wanted to say, I mean, all those, killing someone, inflicting serious injury, all of those need to be unprovoked. I mean, because I had a bull mastiff that loved my wife, and if I'd have raised my hand to her, he'd have come through the window at me. So, and it would have been justifiable. So he wouldn't be a vicious dog.
Well,
He was the most loving dog you'd ever know, but he would not stand anyone.
page 6 of 7 pretty much insinuates that on B, Barry. Item B on page 6 of 7.
Yeah, that's explicitly covered in 3C, 3 Charlie, protecting or defending a human being or domestic animal from attack or assault.
B talks about if you're provoking the dog.
Yeah, protecting itself or itself.
I just like in ordinances it to be very clear. And you may have it over here, but if it's not over here, someone will say, well, it's a vicious dog because it caused serious harm. Well, it's not a vicious dog, it's a dangerous dog. And it was provoked. So I don't know. So just like I said, in the vicious dog area, I would like it to say unprovoked injury.
Like, well, because you want like number 1, dangerous dog on page 1 of 7. Number 1 says when unprovoked.
So I think, Counselor, what we could do is take subsection D, beginning on page 5 of 7, all the way down to 3 Charlie, which is in the middle of page 6, and we put that all into the definition section.
Jim, do you have anything you want to add? Or-
Oh, if it's up to the officer's discretion, we just want to change behavior. We have a huge problem we need to take care of. And it's not going to change until we change how people handle their animals.
So you're mainly wanting in this, the vicious dog definition. So you can do something about it.
Yes.
Okay.
What's to the, discretion, and you have legal system also, so.
We got,
So I think all the fines underneath the public nuisance on page 3 to 7 need to be taken out. I think
Take it out or just back?
back to the original, I'm sorry. And then I think the keeping more than 8 dogs, I think it needs to be put back down to 5,
I'd still like,
or 5 cats and animals, 5.
but if you go to 7, meet you almost halfway.
How about 6.5?
Ooh. Hey. A Chihuahua could be a half dog.
Next door.
I just think 5 is more suitable because right now, without a permit, you have all of south of Roswell crowded. You just said that on your cleanup.
Oh, yeah.
So now you're going to allow them 8. So that's going the wrong direction.
Let's do 6 then. Well, let's see, do 6.
it's an even number.
Okay.
Edith.
6.5.
I'm okay with 6.5.
6.5 it is.
That's okay, as long as it's in the freezer, it doesn't bother us at all there.
When we pass the chickens, is it still 4?
Yes,
No,
no, chickens are all still the same.
We bumped it to 6?
I think it's 6.
I tried to get it to 6, but they wouldn't. And at the time, Tractor Supply only sold them in 6. 6 kids. So I said,
Well, the
well,
one
you're gonna have to kill
always
2.
dies anyway.
So I said, you have to kill 2 on the way home, otherwise you're breaking the law.
So.
It is 6 now.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Name and address, sorry.
Nicole East, 5016 Apache Hills Drive. Sorry, I came a little late, so I'm not sure everything that's been said, but we had a meeting with some people in like Minnesota. At the end of the meeting, there was a group consensus that the cruelty, the fine for cruelty, we wanted to keep that higher rate. And on that one, we didn't want to see the mandatory term be removed. All the other ones, we heard there were reasons to remove the mandatory, but we felt that for animal cruelty in general, that we should help hold people accountable for that. And so I disagree with keeping the $100 charge. I agree with raising it to 500, and I would like to keep that mandatory on that one piece.
You okay with that? Officer Beth?
I'm okay with that. My question to our judge is though, how many times has he gone through to a cruelty case and even upheld him to what we have now?
You know, Mr. Fox, if he does any of that?
I mean, I just think that whole animal situation over there is just overlooked in the courts. I really think it's in and out. If we can get the dogs out of the animal control that have been put over there because of the court.
I'd almost like a cruelty shouldn't go to a municipal court. I think it should be a
District.
district.
Make it a felony,
I mean,
put a magistrate.
I mean, it's just one of those things. Municipal court has always been municipal court.
That could be.
Cruelty to animals, not a municipal.
I'll go ahead and agree with you on that. Take it to district court and go ahead and keep it in mind.
Can our animal control officers, it takes a PD
We call PD.
to get involved?
Is that a problem with the PD to step in there and,
We'll investigate any felony.
because cruelty to me is just.
Cruelty is not something that
That's
is,
a horse.
it's not a
chicken,
municipal
anything.
offense. It's something that's more.
Typically, when you do a misdemeanor, it's a neglectful situation. The felonies would be intentional. So like, how I'm thinking is like grooming was neglected, which caused sores. Is that intentional or neglectful? Would you like all those things to go to felony?
Yes.
Well,
The ordinance is very specific on what what animal control is going to decide in the municipal court. So it's not that they were out there with a stick beating the dog, causing it to bleed or breaking bones or anything like that. Maybe it was they weren't giving it shelter, they weren't feeding it appropriately. There's different levels in it, but it's very specific. Whereas the animal cruelty statute is very broad, but it has to result in severe injury or death of the animal. So then that's the felony level, which law enforcement, whether it's livestock board, game and fish, sheriff, state police, city police, that's when we would get involved. So we're looking at two separate things. So we don't need to disregard the ordinance that animal control uses. And I don't know how often they use it. I can't speak to that, but we don't need to disregard that or take that away from them as a tool. But if it is animal cruelty, which there have been a few times where they have referred a case to us that we've taken over and investigated and filed charges on. But that is separate from what they're using.
So that's what.
There's a lot more
Well,
about.
the difference between neglect and cruelty is, and that's what, do we have a definition of neglect? Because that would be the case. If lack of grooming has caused something, or we really want a $500 fine for lack of
Well, I
grooming.
think it's still.
But it could get up to the, yeah.
So it's a pretty harsh fine for neglect.
Well, the neglect is cruelty.
That's what I was gonna say.
It's one and the same. It's just like you're saying that one is more harsh than the other. One takes a longer time, where if I just,
There it is.
beat it, it's shorter.
Failure by responsible party.
Oh, and you're right, it is 4 chickens.
4 chickens, yeah.
For 4 cents an acre, 25 for an acre.
Right, but like I said, that I tried to change that at city council and they wouldn't change it.
Somebody wants to say.
Now's your chance. That's a chance. We're doing the animal ordinance.
I was known as a chicken guy because I pushed it through and
Well,
I don't even eat eggs, so I don't know.
I think at this point, we need to postpone it and let's go through it again and put it on the next meeting.
Do the chickens at 6 then.
That's good.
It makes sense just because like per quarter acre.
6 per acre. Okay, I'll add that.
Have we had any complaints about chickens, roosters?
Roosters, we go take care of it.
Okay, so.
There's a rooster on the south side. I know. I hear it every once in a
I
while.
don't have roosters.
Find it, we talk to the owner.
Had any problem with livestock lately?
No, not really.
Okay, then, so at this point, what it sounds like, what do you guys want to do with the cruelty? Do you want to leave it at 500?
Well,
I like
That's
going
where
to the
I-
district.
and let's have a full definition between neglect and cruelty, because that's the thing. Neglect, I don't see a $500 fine. Cruelty, I see it. I don't mind it going to district court.
So define both of those out.
If we look at the definitions, can we add the term bestiality in the cruelty?
It's already in
It's
the
already in
ordinance.
here.
It's underneath itself.
This is only the amendments.
Yeah.
I didn't know that term was.
Yeah, it's,
It's in our code.
it was
We
put
added
in there
that.
last time all by itself.
So the fines, we want to go back to the original ones, change the
They want-
quantity to 6.5. Do 6 chickens. The cruelty, what do you guys want to do with that? Do you want to leave it, because it's up to the animal control officer and the police whether or not it goes to magistrate court. But you want to leave the fine at no less than 500.
I think we need to leave the fine and,
That's the only fine that'll stay.
But if
and
it goes to a magistrate,
let's give them a choice.
yeah.
Let's give the officer the choice.
Well, whether it goes to cruelty.
So the statutory definition of cruelty is not the same as ours. They do cover different things. And this is a lower standard, which is why it's municipal offense as opposed to a felony.
Well, maybe you should bring that to us so we can read it and see if we can incorporate it. I mean, you're wanting to crack down on these jerks that do stuff, so crack down on them, and you get about 10 in there in jail for beating their dog or not taking care of it. Maybe they'll finally get it across to their head. And if we can put them up on the board with their picture and their poor dog, or just a picture of their poor dog after they've done that to it, embarrass them.
Because those are the ones that are leaving their animals there.
Mhm.
They get picked up, they are not just go get another dog. Those are the ones we need to go after. Stop them from getting more dogs.
That's my dog. She thinks I'm cruel.
Okay, Barry, make a motion.
I'm wrong. What?
I'd just soon beat the people the way they beat the dog, but that's my opinion.
If you guys are gonna table this, can we say two quick little things to think about when you guys go through it again? So we talked to a few people, like Nicole was saying, one of the concerns we had was about the microchip. Just the fact that, and I'm sorry, you guys already discussed this, that you're putting it on the owner to make sure it's compatible with scanners. I mean, a lot of us come from other places, our dogs are already chipped, technically within compliance. But this tends to leave, like, if it doesn't scan with their scanners, that you guys aren't gonna allow it as a microchip.
We all brand new scanners, typically you pick up anything. So
Okay.
if your animal got loose, how would you expect to get it back? We use the same ones that the vets use. So remember there for a while, the scanners were iffy.
That's all we're asking.
They got all brand new, yeah. Yeah, all brand new ones. We just gonna give you your animal back. So.
Well, is there a problem with, I mean,
It just states that in the ordinance.
but that's, I had a question about that too, because, I mean, my scanner, I've yet to.
Jim said this morning they were having problems, I know, but
One of the also training, the chip's not always where you might think it would be. Sometimes older dogs, it roams around. So you have to learn how to actually scan the animal properly, and we updated all the equipment. So I think we're looking pretty good, and we're in contact with the vets now. So if there's something new that comes out, we'll buy new equipment. So I think we're doing okay. We just will give you your animal back.
Well, they'll probably update your software anyways. There's new.
Well, it's nationwide. I mean, we do
Yeah.
it nationwide. And so, you know, it's long number, and it doesn't take a minute to look for all.
Well, and Jim, can you get you guys to check and make sure that they pick up the Avid chips, which is a 9-digit number? A lot of scanners don't pick up the Avid chips. In College Garden, they finally changed. They were using those like mad for years.
All right,
And some scanners will not pick those up.
we can test it.
Okay, do you,
Have it?
the last thing I had, on the dangerous dog, I'm assuming the first part was the definition. Just number 3 where it talks about poisonous, stinging or biting.
Oh, that's coming up. Oh,
Okay.
wait. What page are you on? 5 of 7.
1 of 7,
7.
number 3.
One of
Last
7.
one. An animal which because of its.
I question that one.
Talk about like poisonous snakes being harbored in the city and stuff, that's fine, but.
That's what it was, but state statute already. But this is just definition.
Okay,
Everything else was pretty.
any more discussion?
I kind of misspoke a while ago. The cruelty to animal statute is very similar to the city ordinance, but the extreme cruelty to animals is the felony level.
That again would be the officer getting hold of, yeah.
That would be certified law enforcement.
Are we postponing it, Barry?
Yes, so postponing would bring it back.
No action. Bring it
Or no
back.
action?
Or no action.
Bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no action, bring it back.
Yeah, that'd be a vote to postpone until the next meeting.
If you sign any additional changes, please email Hess.
Yeah, motion. So
You like this pen or what?
Or motion to postpone.
Motion to postpone.
I'm trying to make a motion to postpone.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We'll get this- I do think we need to do an educational campaign.
We probably have to go to one meeting to get that set up.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, not too far.
Okay, next regular item, consider approval of new purchase order to First Vehicle Group for $225,000 for vehicle maintenance and repair. Chief Miller.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair, committee members. Basically, we're just wanting you to consider the approval of allowing us to open a purchase order and approve an amount above $60,000 to coincide with our maintenance contract with First Vehicle Services. So that basically throughout the year, being an entire fleet of trucks, as they have to be repaired or worked on, we'll have the funds freed up to be able to just pay on an open PO.
Are they certified
Yes,
for your fancy dancy stuff?
they are. And they're, knock on wood, they're getting better every day too.
They're getting more.
They're getting more and more certs all the time and more people certified.
That was a big problem we had. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take.
No, you're fine. And this would have to go to, I'm guessing, finance before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Never did it before, but okay. Make sure Bobby gets his shining light.
and he hates open purchase orders.
Not a private business.
Any more discussion there?
I'd like to make a motion to go to full council via Bobby on the new purchase order for the First Vehicle Group for $225,000 for vehicle maintenance and repair.
Full council or finance?
Oh, no, we want to go to full council, but we want Bobby to see it first. So that means it needs to go on this finance, this before it goes to full council. That way, if he says it can't go to full council, too bad, so
It
sad.
goes to full council.
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Counselor Arnold here. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Madam Chair, could I have one thing on that?
Absolutely.
The fire department, they got their third truck in on Friday.
Saving that for department reports.
Okay, good.
I was going to ask you too.
Taking your parade, isn't
I wasn't about to forget that part.
Well, you missed it. Time. This is the correct one.
Yes. It starts out like that for a reason. Okay, so probably since May of 2022, I've been working on behavioral health diversion, jail diversion, kind of trying, I was actually invited by a state organization to participate in looking at bringing court diversion to local communities. Okay, so anyway, it's been that long and I kind of felt that so much has actually been established that I wanted to make sure that public safety kind of knew where the city was involved in this. And Captain Joe Smith has actually been along for the ride over since last year. He's been in a lot of meetings. And I have a portion in here that I'm going to have him kind of go over what he's envisioning. Last month, at the beginning, was it this month? It was March 2nd, right?
Last Friday.
Okay. Oh, yeah. See, time's going so quickly. We had a stakeholders meeting, which you'll see who the stakeholders are here shortly. And there's been a lot changed after the stakeholders actually contributed. And the stakeholders are people who work within the behavioral health field or different levels. And so I'm going to start with this. The Chaves County Behavioral Health Council, this is what I introduced at the stakeholders meeting as a jail diversion pilot program. If you can go to the next. So Judge Hudson actually worked to create the Chaves County Behavioral Health Council Jail Diversion Subcommittee. These are all the members. We've been meeting each month and they're just kind of creating the foundation. One of the things I will say, working on the state level and listening to what other communities, a good majority of the people who are on the state level groups come from Albuquerque. And Albuquerque is already talking about building jail, court diversion, mental health facilities. And I'm kind of like, okay, Chaves County, we're not there. That's maybe not our approach. And so I've learned a lot on what's actually out there across the state and, where each area is kind of at. And I learned where we're at. So if you'll go to the next slide. This is the background. September of 2022, several members of the Behavioral Health Council attended the Behavioral Health Summit held by AOC in Santa Fe. And at that meeting, we committed to creating a jail diversion program for Chaves County, creating a behavioral health fair, and then actually also working to come up with funding for crisis intervention and trauma training for our courts and for our police officers. In October, Judge James Hudson created the Health Council Jail Diversion Subcommittee, comprised of the aforementioned 6 members in the previous slide. November, the subcommittee had its first meeting. December, January, and February, Commissioner Dara Dana, myself, and Maria Ordonez from the municipal court, we actually had attended a lot of meetings via Zoom or actually traveling Santa Fe. We've met with state officials from the state public defender, several senators. We've met with Mr. Bauer and Mr. Bowen. Mr. Bowen, who's the behavioral health director for the state, we've met with them in attempts to determine the makeup of what the program and any available funding, because the big thing is there's a lot of talk on a state level of creating a statewide behavioral health program. Okay, until February. In February, we realized that the state was so disorganized on the behavioral health issue to effectively be of any assistance. So we decided to actually build it locally with the possibility of connecting with the state at a later time. As I said, Chaves County, we don't even really have a complete foundation laid. So if we want to provide resources, and I'm not talking like mental health, homeless people, I'm talking about people who are one paycheck away from being homeless. There's several different levels of support that could actually, resources that could be provided. And we really need to start working to create a network of that. And so if you'll go to the next slide. This was actually an article that this is when we realized that, you know, on the state level, because that was the meeting with the behavioral health director. That was the article from that meeting. And basically, it was basically said that there is a scattershot approach to behavioral health because you have 5 or 6 different communities working on their own version of behavioral health. There's nothing actually congruent. And Commissioner Daradana and myself actually kind of felt like, I really don't know that I want Santa Fe talking to us about what behavioral health in Chaves County should look like. And so that's kind of when we pull back. If you'll actually go to the next one, the court's role at this point. So this is where we kind of decided that it is no longer jail diversion because there is a little bit of an issue with certain language in our statutes that actually kind of prevent our courts from actually participating, and it has to do with clemency and competency. So it kind of prevents them from doing a court diversion program, and because the courts don't necessarily have the complete statutory right to actually put them into a facility, defer them into a facility instead of putting them into prison. So court diversion, that diverts them from going to actual jail, and instead they serve their sentence going through court diversion, behavioral health, and a different type of program. Because there are some people that the symptom is the actual crime, and you can see that there's a lot of other issues that if we could address those other issues, if we could take a time. So this is kind of the biggest hangup, because our courts, if we could actually get the state to create something congruent that would actually allow us to mandate treatment, mental health treatment, drug treatment. Now, drug treatment is, but the program isn't as long, so there's a lot of talk on why that's not helping or working. But the biggest thing, and I think Captain Smith tells me this all the time, without making them, many people will go into programs. You know, they're not going to actually just volunteer. And so that being said, because he's absolutely right, but we're in a position right now where it was either really extreme mental health or now we're really lenient. So hoping that pendulum will swing in the direction that I believe that many states are moving. And that's why I want to make sure that we in Chaves County have a foundation laid. So next, the stakeholders. These are the people in the community that were at the stakeholders meeting that will also be part of this actual super connector program. You got Chaves County, City of Roswell. The courts actually can have some role, but it has to be prior to sentencing, right? Okay, prior to sentencing. Roswell Police Department, Chaves County Sheriff's Department. Sorry, I got lazy on the Chaves County part there. Chaves County Detention Center. Justin from the Chaves County Detention Center was at the stakeholder meeting, had a lot of great ideas and suggestions. Private nonprofit, you have La Casa, you have Chaves County Health Council. Chaves County Health Council is actually someone we've been talking to create what we call a resource app, which I'll talk to you about here shortly. You have the Sunrise, because if we actually have someone who recognizes that there is a possibility that, and wanting and seeking assistance, it's important that they're at the table with us to create the opportunity for stabilization. The liaison entity is actually going to be I call it a liaison entity because it's the main center it's the hub, it's the program that is supported by the county, by the city, and it will probably be put out for RFP to determine, because there's several different, we could go business-wise, you could go nonprofit. There are businesses that could actually do that, and I'll kind of talk about what that is. Eastern New Mexico University was invited to the table because they're very important in helping us with staffing, case managers, peer workers, mental health workers, all of that. They have the key to help us build that. Also, if we actually have a program, that creates a requirement of education or working, that's why you have that connection there. Okay, next slide. This is a rough kind of look of what the program would look like. It is not completely defined because Captain Smith and I have actually talked about the fact that by the time this ever actually becomes anything, it will be probably completely different than anything I'm talking about now. But that's okay, because we have to go through the steps to actually kind of learn and take solutions and advice from all, different groups, and we can build what eventually will become something successful. Community Behavioral Health Diversion Program is what it is now. The subcommittee decided to call it now. You basically have a qualifying client, whether they come from like the homeless shelter, whether they come from Salvation Army, whether they come from the detention center, but if they qualify, once the qualifications are actually created and agreed upon, they go through the pre-screening for the program. They're assigned to a case manager. The case manager actually works at the liaison entity. The case manager and the peer recovery are managed by the liaison entity. We just haven't come up with a name for it yet. Then we partner with like La Casa to provide behavioral treatment. We create an opportunity, and this is probably kind of like the transitional housing is actually hard because we have to determine what that looks like. And that is the biggest thing on a statewide level, most communities are already at this transitional housing phase. That's what a lot of, and I kept saying, there's no reason for me to even talk about creating transitional housing. We don't have that foundation program. We don't have a lot of the resources to provide. So we have to kind of go back a notch. But this is a kind of a long-term goal. Education work program while in transitional housing and a post-release plan so that once someone actually leaves the facility or the program, there's actually a plan set up. They actually have a place to live. They've had classes on budgeting and just getting them actually set up for success after they leave. Go ahead. Okay, this is actually what we have established. The pilot program will initially be managed by Chaves County government, La Casa, Chaves County Health Council, and a liaison entity. Participating agencies, homeless shelters, Salvation Army, I did mention those. The Chaves County Commission will be the fiscal agent for the program. MOUs between the county and the supporting agencies will be established with oversight provided by the county and the city and hopefully eventually the courts. Crisis intervention and trauma training for policing agencies. That was actually something that the Behavioral Health Council is actually hoping to accomplish. And we want to make sure that it does, or that funding for both of those, because trauma training, I think that there's some staff in the county and in the city that could actually benefit from trauma training. Now this to me is this next one is what I believe is the very first step. County, city, and community resource app. So generally, the first point of contact, as Captain Smith and I have discussed many times, is our police department. Okay. If you have a police officer who comes across someone and they start having a conversation with someone on the street that may be homeless, but the person says, well, I can't do anything because I can't get my license, because I don't have my birth certificate, because I don't have a mailbox. Okay. So we want to actually create an app for sheriff's department, for county officials, for city officials, for policing departments to actually have on their phone. And I believe you guys already have a police department app that we could actually be adding into this and kind of connecting it and all going out. But it can actually, when you pull his up, it actually already has different sections for shelters, sections for where they can go for food. That way the officer has everything right here to be able to advise someone. Because the real goal is to stop them before they even get into the system. And if actually creating the resources to solve the problem that may have led them into the system, that's a lot of the issue here, because our community, one of the biggest things is recidivism. We have about the same people creating the same crimes over and over. So how do we actually break that cycle of recidivism with those individuals? And that is to start trying to figure out what is the meat and potatoes behind the reason they're committing crime. So next, city's participation. This is actually where I'm going to let Captain Joe Smith go ahead and talk about law enforcement adjudication diversion. And actually, Mike, your suggestion is up there as well, that bottom one. So go ahead.
So a lot of the people that law enforcement comes in contact with who would be most likely participating in this program are suffering from mental health issues and or drug and alcohol substance abuse problems. And most of the time when we're interacting with these individuals, it's because we received a call for service. We don't normally just stop and interact with them. They've committed some type of crime, they're acting suspicious, they're passed out. So someone, a citizen, has felt the need to call us to respond to them. So all of our law enforcement officers in the academy, they get 40 hours of CIT training, critical incident training. We want to do additional training. Obviously, we have to have the funding for that. It'd be ideal to get a trainer down here to the city so we don't have to pay the extra expenses for travel, and get as many people as we can through it. Get the sheriff's department, get the jail, get other city staff through it. Maybe even the firemen, because oftentimes they're the ones that respond because, like I said, it's a man down call. They're passed out. It's a suspected medical call. But while we're interacting with those, back to the app, we want resources on there that you don't have to know it. You don't have to have it memorized. You don't have to go back to the car and look it up on a computer or pull out a notebook to find this stuff. And on that app, it's going to show what resources are available, the location of it, their business hours. Unfortunately, where we live in Roswell, there's a lot of stuff that is only open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. You're not going to get very much help after hours, on the weekend, on the holidays. But through this process, we also learned that the New Mexico Rehab Center is going to be hopefully a very good partner for us. They have a 7-day detox program. They have a 28-day in-house program, and they have a long-term program as well. They are Medicare and Medicaid recipients, and they also take you even if you don't have any insurance. And so maybe some people knew that, but I did not know that. And they only have like 4 to 6 people in there. And so they are very much underutilized. So obviously some of these people that we're interacting with, we do our very best to not arrest them if they don't need to be arrested. But also we have a young department. So I know when I was young and I joined the department, you call me, I signed up to take people to jail, and that's what I wanted to do. So, you called me, you need to go to jail, I'm taking you to jail. With age and experience, I learned that maybe that's not always the best option. So we're going to do a better job of trying to teach our officers that maybe they don't need to go to jail. Sometimes they tie our hands, and that is our only option. We've given them a chance or 2 or 3, and we have to do something with them. We can't just keep occupying our time and our resources dealing with one individual. Also, like the slide says, the totality of circumstances. What time of day is it? If it's 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe we're not that busy, so we can spend a little bit more time trying to deal with the individual. But if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and we're busy as heck and there's a bunch of calls for service pending and a bunch of people need our help, then we can't spend a lot of time dealing with that one individual. We have to resolve that call for service the best way that we can. And sometimes that means putting them in the back of the car, driving them to the jail, dropping them off so we can get back out on the street and assist the rest of the public that needs it. So we're going to be doing everything that we can, and we know going into this, that this is going to be resolved or up and running in the near future. We know it's going to be a long haul. We know that we need to get started right away in order to make any progress at all. So that's what we're here for now, is to bring this to your attention, hopefully get people to hear about it and get your support, knowing that it's going to be a process.
Yes, thank you. The New Mexico Rehab, while at the stakeholders meeting, they actually mentioned a 24-hour triage. That is actually something that is already on a state level. There's funding for that. So there is actual opportunity, and I think it would probably be a sit down to determine what that would look like.
I talked to Matthew today. He is the director of the rehab center, Matthew Rael. He said at this time that would not be a possibility for them to be the triage center. He said they would still want the triage to go through the hospital. They have a contract with the hospital, and then that Dr. Black could refer them after being triaged at the hospital. He said over long term, that might be something that they could do later on, but that they do have someone on call. And very rarely is someone not accepted there. It's usually a brief conversation with their nurse. The only reason that they haven't turned people away is if they have a prior medical condition that they're not suited to take care of. If someone has congestive heart failure or something like that, that they're already dealing with, that they don't have the medical staff to take care of that. It's very rarely are they turning anyone away. So.
Well, and that's actually good to know, because one of the things, so everything I'm talking about is not actually tomorrow or next week. But the thing is we have to understand what the New Mexico Rehab looks like so we can actually create the vision. So you can go to Santa Fe, so you can get the funding to build a program like that. What does it mean? What does it look like? What does it need? If we're not having these conversations, we're not getting anywhere. So while I don't want people to think I am naive and think this is coming next 2 weeks, but I am a planner. I am looking at what do we have to do to even get, because I guarantee you, I could probably go sit with Senator Pino right now about that rehab to start getting the funding to create a whole area that has specifically, is funded specifically to have staffing just for triage, because that's what they're creating on a state level. But we have to realize this is what we want to create. What does it take to build that house? You need wood, you need concrete, you need this, so you know that. So that's how we get there. We start actually, as a community, sitting down going, this is what we want to see here. Put it on a to-do list and then freaking build it. Next is the.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Right where you're talking there. Do we know how many behavioral health professionals we have in Chavez County?
Well, CASA has, I think they have 12. So that's why La Casa is actually seriously involved in this, because like I said, on that kind of note, thing is so we start going, this is how many we need to start pushing for it. And this is where the funding is coming from, because they're on board. They're at the table on all of these subcommittee meetings, and they're at the table. And so giving them the idea, and they're part of the planning on what it should look like. That's how we start pushing for it more on that.
Well, and that's where I mean, because I love all this, but the other thing about it is we got to look at how many health professionals we have. What is the need per capita, nationwide? What do we look at? And then try to get it to the point where I know we're always looking at doctors, trying to get doctors in and stuff, but this is also what we need. I know EMUR used to have like a social work program through Highlands, but I'm not even sure if they have that anymore. They still have that?
No, that one, they actually have peer recovery, but in Portales, they actually have the actual steps to become mental health.
And so looking at doing that to fill that gap too.
I mean, we need to keep moving this way, but we also have to get to a point where we have the
That's why
people in Chaves County that can handle it.
Eastern was at the actual table. Most of the advisement but myself and the Commissioner Daradana has actually been from the clinical director, Elizabeth Macias. She's the clinical director of La Casa, and she also used to run the previous jail diversion program for youth. So we have a lot of people at the table who understand, yes, we have shortages. We understand where the shortages are. But so anyone going through your program, you kind of look at the numbers of that. When you actually, because I'm not talking like 50 people running through a year diversion, I'm talking 12. If we can get 12 through a program and 5 of those are successful, that's going to drop your rates a whole lot. I recognize, because when I was telling this to people in Albuquerque, they have 100 that would go through a program. I'm like, for us, it's not, it could actually be ran out of an old historical home that's converted. You know, it's all about what the reality of our numbers of the people that would qualify for the diversion program. And the diversion program is basically a program that says, okay, this person has continuously been through the system, but if we could actually separate them, because in you know, the disassociation theory, when you start putting that into practice and disassociate them from certain patterns, you have some who are successful at recreating their life. And one thing I had a hard time with on the people on the state level is they want brick, they want cinder blocks and concrete. And I kept saying, that's not Chaves County. Okay, if we're actually going to really help somebody rebuild their life, and if it's only 5, that's 5 more taxpayers we have. So, I mean, I know the numbers as far as the behavioral, the mental health, and that is exactly something that Elizabeth is talking to Marty to work to build.
And that's, yeah, and I mean, so agreeing with this, but also coming behind it to bump up our professional health professionals. And, but because I agree, I mean, I worked for an alcohol treatment center, and the whole time I was there, I think I had one non-adjudicated person that went through. And I really think she went through because she knew she was going to have a divorce coming, and she wanted to have that on her record so that she could get child custody. So she had reasons to do it besides just saying, okay, I want to get sober. But everybody else was adjudicated. So I do believe that, you know,
eventually, and that's kind of my thought. The goal is the state is trending in that direction. The problem is we don't have it yet, but when it comes, I would rather instead of saying we're waiting for the state to make law, I would rather us to say, well, we've already got this built. So now that the state has made law, we just have to make a couple more steps and we're there. Because that's why the thing is I'll be honest, we're actually not going to be successful until our state legislature can actually say we have to force these people to get some help. But it's moving that direction. It's moving that direction.
And on the app, I really love it, but I also think that we're going to have physical cards or something, because you're not going to, you can tell the person the address, but if you give them the card.
That's a good follow-up as well. And all of our officers carry notepads. So, I mean, depending on what they're needing, the officer could have it on the app as well and write down what they need, because not everyone's going to need all 50 resources. You know what I mean? They may need a very specific one. But yes, having it written down on a card, that's very beneficial as well. Of course, you know, the funding.
To have the printing, so, yeah. I understand that, but that would be the way for us to fund the app, but also
believe it or not, a lot of these homeless people have cell phones.
That's why
Obama.
So, and the app is going to be for the public as well. I mean, the officer's going to have it on their phones, but it's going to be an app.
Log into this app.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yep. So
that's the vision.
That's the vision. And I think we'll continuously getting input from the people who have boots on the ground, whether they're boots on the ground, behavioral health, boots on the ground, community kitchen, police department, all of these people. That is who we want at the table, because they deal in this arena every day. This was actually something that Mr. Matthews actually suggested that the city, as people are going through a program, like I said, it would be required that they're either getting educated or working while in the program. Having opportunity within the city to have them work in the parks, have them, work in different areas and giving them, even if it's a receptionist, there's different things that I think that we can contribute and actually be a part of this. Now, of course, there's all different types of programs and jobs throughout the city, but opportunity from does actually live here.
I'm sure the program will have set up some benchmarks. So once these individuals reach that benchmark and now they have to be gainfully employed or whatever, we're constantly, as of today, over 60 some open positions, and many of them are the entry level positions that we're not talking about tons of people, even if it's five, we're constantly having open positions in the entry level that we can place people.
Yep.
To get them some.
And that works twofold too, because, if I always think about Exxon and Chevron used to hire the Bedouins used to go along and they have the oil pipelines and they needed to cross there. So they just throw a couple sticks of dynamite, blow up the pipeline and go through. Well, then the Exxon and Chevron hired the Bedouins to guard the pipelines and they quit getting blown up.
Yes.
If we're hiring the people to clean up a park, they might not be the one trashing the park next time.
Exactly.
They take ownership.
Yeah. So next, this is actually talking about funding mechanisms, okay? Because until, that's the interesting thing about what was presented at the state level. You had several different communities were presenting specifically for the projects in their area, like a transitional housing in Las Cruces, an actual regional state mental facility in Curry County to the tune of 39 million down in Las Cruces. So I was kind of actually interested to see how that turns out, because if they're going to fund project by project, then we need to be ready next year to put in for a project. So opioid settlement. This was actually money that is coming to the county and the city. And I believe that the county and the city have agreed to combine that funding and put it towards this kind of program, whether it's the app, resources, making sure that all that, but that's actually where that's looking at going. And we have, I think, Mr. Matthews, on that, we're still waiting on the final, but we're getting close to that actually being settled out.
I believe so.
Okay. And so we really, this is all a pipe dream until that's actually in a checking account somewhere. Grant writers, there's grant writers here on the city level and on the county level. And then of course, like I said, state funding, whether it's for triage center, whether it's for funding for transitional housing or running a program. There's actually one out there that I think it's in Farmington that's talking about running a program. So we're kind of looking to see what the area looks like, what we want to build. And that's this, it's taking from the community on what we want to build. Okay, next. Okay, what's next for the subcommittee? The next for the subcommittee is to create a scope of work and a job description for a program manager. Because the person that actually would build all this is the one that would run the liaison entity. Because they're going to be professionals in the field and kind of at work to build the program. This was Elizabeth Messia's idea. She actually would like to start creating exposure, cross exposure between the agencies, between like La Casa, peer workers, case managers, working and talking and working with police. So each agency can kind of see what the other does in a day and actually have cross exposure and learn more about what each side is going through. So we'll look at having further discussion on setting that up and what that looks like. The next thing, the stakeholders are going to actually tour the rehab because, well, first off, it was actually Representative Greg Nybert's idea when we were talking about putting a facility. He kept saying the rehab because it's underused. We have a huge resource right there. So we actually need to know what that resource looks like. You know, how it's operated, how it's worked, and we can learn more about that. Also, there are other statewide programs that because Las Cruces, and this is, I kind of get confused because Las Cruces is operating a jail diversion program. I can't argue that, you know, why we can't have one if I don't understand how they have one. So it is actually my goal to go to Las Cruces, get set up, take the tours, learn what they're doing, go to Farmington. Farmington has a great program, start learning what they're doing. And my theory is just go to all these different programs and piecemeal, find what works for Chaves County. That's it. But I just kind of wanted to bring that to you. That's where we're at. Our next stakeholders won't probably be for two more months or so, 2 or 3 more months. But I just kind of wanted you guys to see where we're at. Captain Smith is actually right. This will probably take us a long time. But if we're not talking about it, you know, I mean, it took you, 2 years to do an ordinance, right? So that's the reality. But I'm committed and comfortable with going a long time.
I agree with Councilor Foster. I think your biggest hurdle, because even people that aren't at risk of going to jail can't find the health care they need. You know, that's your biggest, but if you get funding, remedy that.
Yep. They'll come where the money is and where work is.
Yeah.
And if we can get a program in the schools.
Prevent.
But I mean, at Easter to turn out.
Oh, yeah.
Then you might keep more here.
Yeah.
Bringing them in from New York, they're not going to stay.
Councilor Arnold?
Yeah. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
Okay, we have a department updates. No, you had one.
Sorry, yeah, we already talked about it.
Mike ruined it.
That's out of the bag.
That's out of the bag.
Actually, you get it. You're the one who headed all this up for me.
Well, pushing it in, that's what
Well, counselors, thank you for your time. We came to you guys a while back, needing in dire need of some apparatus. And through the, yes, right.
So many officers in the.
I'm not anywhere with that one.
And through a bunch of very clever planning and stuff like that, we were able to get them. We got them on order. The manufacturer just completed all 4 of them. We took delivery of 2 of them about a month ago. They're actually been running calls. They're doing just perfect like we expect them to do. We took delivery of the 3rd last Friday. Got all the insurance stuff taken care of. We're waiting on that stuff. And then the 4th one is actually in Lubbock right now, getting some final touches. They stop in Lubbock because that's one of their dealers. They go through them and make sure that everything's right before they deliver them. So we don't have any issues with them. So we can expect that one in the next week or so. But yeah, we got a bunch of new trucks and it's pretty amazing. So I hate to rub it in the cops' face that we got trucks, but we did need them. The trucks, I don't know if, I'm sure all of you guys are familiar. The trucks that we were running are, many of them are 20 years old. We got them right after I first started and we're still running those. So it's time to put those out to pasture. Probably like some of the firemen.
We also want to start planning now for the photo. We want to do some, we've got some picture ideas. We've talked to Mike about it. We kind of want to organize a fire service ceremonial, traditional push-in ceremony. But we've also talked about when we do that sort of thing, we want to invite everybody any and everybody that wants to come for that too. Kind of open it up to whoever wants to come see it.
Good.
I might even wear a skirt.
Congratulations. Okay, thank you. Anything else for you guys?
All 8 recruits are still going good.
That's good.
Well, we actually have a bunch of them that just passed their EMT state or national registry, which means that they are well on their way to become actual firefighters. That's probably the hardest part is getting them through their national registry to become EMTs.
Yeah.
Once they get past that, then we can kind of spoon feed them the rest of it, but that's all on their own. So we're real proud of them.
And we'll be having a graduation on May the 8th.
I believe so.
May the 8th at the convention center.
With Karen, we had to move some things around.
It's Monday, the May the 8th.
It is gonna,
Yeah.
oh, yes,
Moved it from the 11th.
that's correct.
So we'll get information out to all the council too for that graduation.
Okay, yes, Mr. Foster.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I have a question. I know we may not have it yet, but I mean, with our new call to, what's it called? Is it not call diversion? What's our new?
Priority dispatch.
Priority dispatch. Have we been able to just like rate how many less miles that we're putting on our engines? Do we have a?
I don't have a strong number for you, but what I will tell you is that it is much less.
So I mean, it'd be pretty cool to like look 2 years ago and see.
And we can definitely do that.
And how many miles per call and then.
The number of EMS only calls.
I was gonna say the easiest way would be able to see how many calls we normally would have been
If we
doing.
have an EMS only call that we don't send we can figure the mileage.
How much mileage we're
I can
saying.
get you.
I mean, I love the program. And I love the call. I mean, because back when I had to call for my wife, it was, they had all the questions and it was like, nope, just need to send an ambulance. So, and she was appreciative too.
I'm gonna pick up truck.
I had to, anyway,
It's very stressful to call
yeah,
for a loved one, I know.
yeah. Well, and then if you know my wife, don't let her stay where she is. And I turn around and she's walking to the living room and I'm like, they said, stay where you are, as I catch her, she's passing out. And I'm like, well, no, she was going to cause more trouble for herself. But then the ambulance showed up. She was real glad that 2 female ambulance didn't,
We didn't
came.
do that on purpose. but-
Yeah, I know. It was just the call. I mean, she was worried, my house is going to be full of firemen. And now she'd just taken a shower. She was in her robe. She fell, broke her arm, and it was perfect. But going through, I noticed as I was telling them everything, the funniest thing was when they were scared about the dogs. And it's like, no, those dogs are only a danger to themselves and my wife. And so, but if we could get the mileage, it would be cool, just to see what we're saying. And longevity, that these new fire trucks will last a little bit longer.
Any more department reports?
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair and Councilors, thank you. I just wanted to touch base on the police department side. As everybody knows, the police chief has turned in his notice of going on to a different job. With that being said, we did want to ensure that operations are going normal. There is no hiccup in anywhere. Deputy Chief Aldana and I are handling everything on a day-to-day basis. We did have, as of last week, we had 8 recruits in the academy that were doing well. This weekend had a little bit of a hiccup, and one of the recruits got into an incident where they found themselves arrested. And so they are no longer employed with the city. And so we now have 7 recruits from the academy. Those 7 are still doing well. That brings our numbers down where we were at 96 occupied positions to 95. And of course, when the chief, his actual time is up at the end of the month, we'll be back down to 95. But we are still actively on a continual process of trying to fill all those positions and doing the best we can at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any more department reports? Okay, Mr. Alan Shanley.
I don't really have a lot of questions, but I'm trying to forget too much this time. My name's Alan Shanley. 2507 South Sunset. Roswell, New Mexico, 88203. Basically, what I have is the city, the ordinance, the vacant building ordinance from the city of Raton. The city of Raton has passed the vacant building ordinance. And they really are kind of a nuisance to our town. It's about 15% is an average in New Mexico, and we got about 20,000 houses here in Roswell. And these houses, they catch on fire more, the police are calling them more, and they're bringing down our property tax. I know that's not a health and safety thing, but that's a real concern. And it's not just the residential homes, it's businesses. We have businesses on Main Street that are just used as warehouses. I mean, and this kind of, that kind of plays an economic development factor, but this kind of needs to be addressed. And I know y'all have looked at it in the past, and as Councilwoman Best and Chief Miller were telling me, it's not a matter of just slapping fines on these people because it doesn't do any good, but we need to figure out something that does, perhaps raise their property taxes and prioritize them for being auctioned off. I mean, if they're going to cost the city more money, isn't it reasonable we go to them and ask them to cover their costs that they're putting onto the city? I know our mailmen recognize houses that are vacant because they put tags on them. Could this be a possible way of having it reported without actually having to get a new set of people out there to do this? And like I said, it's just something I wanted to kind of bring up and show y'all. Somebody else has a roadmap for us. Perhaps we could just take a look at following that. There's a page with how they define, what a vacant house is. Yeah, I think you're looking at it right now. And so it's just something I wanted to bring to y'all's attention and see if there's something that can be done. And I know y'all have talked about it in the past, I'm sure. I'm not the only person that's ever.
Do we have something like this already?
No, not in ordinance. We don't. That I'm aware of.
I have a vacant house listed for sale, and I bet the cops have been there 20 times. 702 West Alameda. Are y'all familiar with it? Yeah. Yeah, and it's got an alarm system in it too. And there's people there all the time.
Toby deals with this all the time, all day.
But that's all I have to say. I can probably answer some questions if y'all have them.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, last week when I was working with Hess, this was actually, I got him a copy of this. So it is on our looking at it, comparing to what we have list. And as far as for the legal committee. So I just was letting you know.
If that's already at the legal committee?
Well, no. It's at the table for discussion. Because when you showed it to me, the Main Street Roswell, I wrote it down. And so I've been working since then.
Well, I appreciate that. I think it'd be a good idea to kind of get ahead of this, not let people let their buildings fall into such disrepair that we have to condemn them before we can do anything about it.
I was happy to see that store in the Brookfield, over in Martin building.
Yeah, I mean, that building's been empty forever, and he still has some right there that are just empty, and they just sit empty. And not only that, we have wet warehouses, we have Main Street storefronts with glass windows.
The entire Hinkle building.
And they just use those store stuff. So, there's a lot of different ways that'll help our city.
Okay, but yes.
Well, one of the things that I've looked at, but the vacant buildings, especially vacant buildings that aren't hooked up to water and sewage, but are not actively hooked up to water. And one of the things I looked at is the amount of vacant land we have that we have water and sewage readily available to them, but we're having to pay for the maintenance of that water and that sewer, or the rest of the city is, and the property gets the value of that being readily available, but they're not paying anything to maintain it. One of the things I thought we need to, for especially vacant lots, have a vacant lot fee yearly that the owners have to pay to maintain the right of way that we're paying for the streets, we're paying for the sewer, we're paying for the water to be readily available that adds value to that land. Same goes for a vacant building. We're still paying, the citizens of Roswell are paying for that sewer to be readily available to that vacant building. It's not being used. Well, there should be some maintenance fee. And I guess when we're looking at this, that's something it could be put in. You can't, I don't know if we could really say, since it's empty, we're going to charge you more for that, but we can charge you for a maintenance fee for all the sewer, water and streets, because it adds value to those.
It does, but they probably didn't ask for it to be put in. It was probably just put in going along the way. You know what I mean? So if I asked you to do something to my, I can understand a vacant piece of land, somebody holding on to it, because it will increase in value. A vacant home is not going to increase in value. It'll get worse every single year. It's not an investment. It's an eyesore and a burden on our community.
Right. Well, but adding that fee to it, we'll get to a point where, and that's the same with the vacant piece of land. Instead of just holding on to that vacant piece of land and paying the property tax on it, if they're having to pay a maintenance fee for the amenities and the sewer and the water, the utility maintenance, then they might decide to develop it faster or sell it to somebody who will develop it. And help some infill, because that's one of the things Roswell's major problem is we're paying for utilities and for infrastructure that we're a 200,000 population city, but we're only got 48,000 people paying for it.
Circle K building is the perfect example of this.
The Circle K building?
Yeah, I drive by it every day.
Circle K's, Circle K. Circle K. I was thinking Kmart.
I spoke to the guy, the property management there. The reason it's not selling is because the buyer, the owner, I'd say, doesn't want to sell the property, he wants to lease the property. So when he leases the property, somebody's gonna go build something there. They're never gonna own it.
Aren't there gas tanks they have to dig up too?
I think they've already got it done.
No, they haven't.
I think they did.
They did, and I remember.
There's the one part of the ground settling.
Yeah, I remember.
That's why the Circle K hasn't sold, because they have, the guy told me he's had about 6, 7 people that want to buy it, but they want to buy it and the seller doesn't want to sell it. He wants to lease it.
But this is like exactly what you're talking about. It's a complete eyesore.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So to hit on what you were actually talking about, Mr. Glenn from the water department is actually working on a water ordinance that actually in it, he's trying to address impact fees like you're talking about for lots. And so, of course, yeah.
I have an issue with it's a vacant lot like the one on Union College. I have a problem with that because you're not tapping into the line at all. Now, if it's a vacant house, that's a totally different situation because it's already been tapped into the main line and it's up halfway to the house where the owner hooks into it. So there's two different things there.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I mean, I have a vacant house sitting over here and I take care of it.
Right. But the vacant lot, we're still paying for the maintenance of that sewer line from the beginning of that lot to the back of that lot.
Well, I'll be glad to dig it out, get rid of it. That way you can maintain it, plug each in. So actually you should be telling the owner, will you give us access to cross your property?
Well, we already have that.
You're right, you
We already
do.
have the easement.
You're right.
But I'm just saying that we're adding value to that lot because we are adding utilities to it.
You know, adding value to the lot. It's been sitting there 75 years.
If it didn't have
If the
utilities. it'd
builder
be
wants
worth-
to
if
buy
didn't-
it.
If it didn't have utilities, it would be worth a lot less.
but that's up for discussion. See, that's what I was trying to say is we had a great time with it last time. So if you want to come to our.
And we got 3-ring binders to read more stuff and we got an internet.
Bring your popcorn, come discussion on impact fees. We're excited. What is that? 2 Mondays from now?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shanley. All right, anything else anyone wants to add?
So you're invited to infrastructure, you know.
I don't think we've had a meeting so long. All right, we adjourn. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, see you.
I swear, I thought this was really interesting. Because I wanted to
about it. Because I'm having, well, you know,